It's about the nature of activity and action. And it specifically points to the question that we had earlier about doing. If I'm in being, will I ever be able to do again? Or how do I know when to do, when to take action? So this is fine-tuning that into action and activity. So Osho says, remember 2 words. One is action, the other is activity. Action is not activity. Activity is not action. Their natures are diametrically opposite. Action is when the situation demands it. You act, you respond. Activity is when the situation doesn't matter. It is not a response. You are so restless within that the situation is just an excuse to be active. Action comes out of a silent mind. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. Activity comes out of a restless mind. It is the ugliest. Action is when it has a relevance. Activity is irrelevant. Action is moment to moment, spontaneous. Activity is loaded with the past. This is what we were speaking about earlier in our own words, about doing that arises from being, how there is a natural impulse, a natural movement of innate intelligence of life, and that is action. It responds to what needs to be responded to. It tends to what needs to be tended to. But it is not born from the restlessness of the agitated mind. It is not born from the need to find a better moment. Yeah? That is activity. That is the movement of mind, that pull, that habitual tendency, which I pointed to earlier, which I'm calling the ego self, that forms what we call the ego matrix. Very different. So you discern within yourself whether the movement, the action, the decision, the doing comes from a place of restless mind, an inner agitation that simply cannot fall into this empty moment, or whether it's out of the empty moment, out of the silence, that a natural impulse of life moves you, and then you are no longer the doer. You have not taken ownership of the moment. You have not taken ownership of the decision. You have not taken ownership of the choice. You have not taken ownership of the intelligence of life. The intelligence of life moves you. You are part of the intelligence of life. You are an expression of the intelligence or a manifestation of the intelligence of life, but you are not the owner of it or the creator of it. Big difference. And as Osho says, find that distinction within. It's a delicate distinction. But from that distinction, when you start to discern it, there's an inner compass. This is the inner compass I pointed to earlier when I spoke of my own experience of awakening. It's a delicate inner compass, but when you're true to that, and that is your guidance in life, as you move through life, as you breathe, as you eat, as you relate, as you speak, as you do, as you think, then it all starts to refine itself. You are purified of the tendencies of ego mind, of ego self, which is the karma of the past, to take ownership and to be the driving force of your life. That's an error that puts you in a prison. An error that keeps you on the search.